There are two very important days in your life. The day you are born and the day you decide why. But most people live in between those 2 days, waiting for the right moment, the perfect opportunity, the magical sign from the universe. But what if today was that sign? You see, life isn't about waiting for things to happen. Life is about choosing to happen to things. We all stand at a crossroads every single day. We don't always recognize it because we think a decision has to feel dramatic But some of the most powerful decisions are the quietest ones, like deciding I will not complain anymore, or I will love myself despite my past, or even I will try again one more time, just one more time. Let me tell you a short story. There was once a young man who went to a wise teacher and said, I want to change my life, but I'm afraid. What if I fail? The teacher smiled and pointed to a tree. Do you see this tree? He asked. It's been standing for decades. But when it was planted, it was no bigger than your thumb. That seed didn't know it would survive storms and winds. It only knew one thing. It had to grow. That's the difference between success and regret. Regret waits. Success decides. Today, you have the power to decide. Not tomorrow, not next year. Today you decide to let go of what hurts. Today, you decide to start building that dream. Today, you decide to forgive, to learn, to become better, not bitter. Don't let the weight of yesterday rob you of the chance to create a new tomorrow because you never know how far one small decision today can take you. Just like a compass shifts by 1 degree and takes a ship to a whole new continent, your decision today can redefine your entire destiny. So pause, breathe, look within, then say it boldly. Today is the day I decide. The power to change doesn't lie in external situations. It begins the moment you decide to respond differently to them. Most people think that their life would improve if their circumstances changed. If they got a better job, had more supportive friends, more money, less stress, or more opportunities, then they'd feel motivated or fulfilled. But the truth is, those things are constantly shifting. Circumstances are like the weather, sometimes sunny, sometimes stormy, but never in your control. What is in your control, however, is how you show up despite the weather. It's easy to blame the situation. It's easy to say, I'm like this because this happened to me. Or, I can't move forward because they didn't support me. But that mindset gives your power away. It puts your future in the hands of the past. The real transformation begins when you realize that you don't have to wait for things to get better to be better. You can be calm even when life is chaotic. You can be kind even when people are cruel. You can be focused even when everything around you is pulling you in different directions. That shift doesn't come from outside. It comes from a decision, a simple, quiet, firm decision. The kind you make when no one is watching. The kind you make in the silence of your own heart. That's when change really starts. It might be hard in the beginning, You might still feel the pull of your habits, the weight of your excuses, and the noise of your past. But every time you choose a better response, every time you say, I'm not going to let this define me, you grow. You take back control. And eventually, what once seemed impossible becomes your new normal. Not because life changed, but because you did. Because you decided. Most people wait for a perfect time that never comes. They keep postponing the start of their dreams, their healing, their growth, because they believe a magical day will arrive when everything will fall into place. When the noise of the world will quiet down, when they'll feel fully ready, when all the risks disappear and confidence appears like a sunrise. But that day never shows up. Life doesn't come with a perfect opening act. It's messy, unpredictable, and often inconvenient. If you keep waiting for the ideal conditions, you'll spend your entire life on standby. There's a silent illusion that tomorrow will be easier, that next week will be clear, that someday you'll be braver. But courage doesn't come in the future. Courage is born in the now. And so many people waste their precious present waiting for a future version of themselves to show up and save them. They don't realize that the future self they dream of is just the result of the decisions they avoid today. Waiting becomes a habit. It becomes comfortable. It feels safe because it gives you an excuse not to act. It allows you to keep dreaming without risking disappointment But what's even more dangerous than failing is living a life where you never tried at all. Opportunities don't always come with a welcome sign. They often appear disguised as challenges, ours to be in thee, as disruptions, as uncomfortable choices. And if you're always waiting for everything to feel right you'll miss the moments that could change your life. Think of every great achievement in the world. It didn't begin on a perfect day. It began on a regular day, often filled with uncertainty, fear, and chaos. But someone somewhere made a decision I won't wait anymore. And that's what made all the difference. Because when you wait too long, what you lose is not just time, but the belief that change is still possible. Eventually, you stop waiting not because the time is right, but because you've given up. So many dreams are buried in graveyards of not today. So many relationships left unresolved, talents unused, stories unwritten. All because people thought the timing wasn't right. But the truth is, time is never right. It's what you decide to do with the time that makes it right. And once you realize that the perfect moment is a myth, you'll stop waiting for life to begin and start living the life you were meant to create. Every day presents an invisible crossroads. From the moment we open our eyes in the morning, we begin making choices. Some big, most small. But each one holds a power far greater than we often realize. The challenge is, these decisions don't come with flashing lights or dramatic background music. They slip quietly into our routines. Should I hit the snooze button or get up and go for that walk I promised myself? Should I respond with patience or let my anger take over? Should I work on my goal today or push it to tomorrow again? These moments feel ordinary, but they are not. They are the tiny hinges upon which the doors of our future swing. A small act of discipline, a single word of kindness, one refusal to give up. It all builds something. The trouble is, because the consequences aren't immediate, we fail to see their significance. When we choose comfort today, we don't immediately lose our dream. When we skip that one commitment, we don't see our character fall apart overnight. So we assume the choice didn't matter. But life isn't shaped in sudden explosions. It's carved silently over time by what we choose daily at those invisible crossroads. Think of your habits. They are nothing but repeated decisions. Think of your relationships. They are built or broken not by grand gestures, but by consistent moments. Conversations, reactions, silences. The way we treat our time, our thoughts, and even ourselves. All of it comes down to choices made so routinely that we forget we're even making them. Yet they shape our identity, our future, our story. Most people only recognize a turning point in hindsight. They look back and say, that was the moment everything changed. But the truth is, it wasn't always a dramatic scene. Often, it was a subtle choice made with quiet intention that created a ripple effect over weeks, months, or years. That's why awareness is so important. If we learn to pause and recognize these daily crossroads, we reclaim our power. We stop living passively, reacting to life, and instead become conscious authors of our own journey. You don't need to wait for some big life event to change direction. Sometimes the most powerful transformation begins with a seemingly insignificant choice, choosing to show up, choosing to believe in yourself again, choosing to take the first small step. That's the kind of decision that silently shifts everything. Not because the world around you changes, but because you begin to change from within. And it's in those quiet, consistent decisions that greatness is born.
You will never meet a truly successful person who says, I succeeded because I made great excuses. Behind every success story, behind every achievement, there is always someone who chose action over hesitation, who chose to keep going when it was easier to quit, and who chose to push forward while others paused to explain why they couldn't. Success doesn't come to those with the best reasons. It comes to those with the best responses to challenges. Think of every person who inspired you, whose journey you admire. Whether it's an athlete, an entrepreneur, an artist, or a leader, none of them got where they are by saying, this is too hard, or I'll try when I feel ready. They got there by acting while others were overthinking. They kept moving forward when others were waiting for perfect conditions. They failed, yes, but they didn't sit with their excuses. They sat with their effort, and that made all the difference. We live in a world full of distractions and easy escapes. Social media makes it easy to compare ourselves to others, and even easier to justify our lack of progress. We say they had more support, they had better luck, they started earlier. And slowly, these comparisons become excuses. But here's the thing. Every second spent comparing is a second wasted on action. Every moment used to explain why you can't is a moment taken away from what you can do. Excuses are contagious. Once you start making one, they multiply. One mistake becomes a week. One skipped step becomes a habit. But action is contagious too. The moment you break that excuse cycle with a simple step forward, you ignite momentum. And momentum is a powerful force. It pulls you out of laziness, out of fear, and into purpose. People often wait for motivation to take action. But the most successful people have realized that motivation is not reliable. It comes and goes. What they depend on is commitment, discipline, a deep internal agreement that they've made with themselves to show up. No matter what, they don't let excuses make decisions for them. They let values guide their steps. There's also a sense of peace that comes when you stop making excuses. When you know you gave your best, that you didn't hide behind justifications or run from effort, you begin to feel a deeper kind of confidence. You may not have all the answers or the perfect plan, but you have your integrity. And that is far more valuable than temporary comfort. Excuses might protect your ego in the short term, but they sabotage your growth in the long term. Every time you choose to act instead of excuse, you build not just your skills, but your self-worth. You start to believe in yourself, not because others believe in you, but because you prove to yourself that you are capable. So remember, no one ever reached the top of their field because they became experts in explaining why things couldn't work. They got there because they acted while others analyzed, they tried while others waited, and they pushed while others paused. That is what separates the dreamers from the doers, the ability to move forward without hiding behind an excuse. Excuses give temporary comfort, but permanent regret. They feel good in the moment. They relieve us from pressure, from the discomfort of trying, from the fear of failing. They are like a warm blanket on a cold morning, soothing, safe, and hard to let go of. But what we often fail to realize is that while they offer short-term emotional relief, they come with long-term emotional cost. That cost is regret. The quiet, heavy weight that shows up later and lingers far longer than the temporary ease that excuses provide. In the moment, saying, "I'll do it tomorrow," or "this isn't the right time," might feel justified. It feels like you're protecting your peace, your comfort. But fast forward days, months, or even years, and that same sentence now sounds like, "I wish I had tried," or "if only I had started earlier." Regret is always louder than the excuse that created it. While excuses fade quickly from memory, the results they prevented stay with us. Stay with us. We often underestimate just how heavy regret can be. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It quietly questions your worth, your potential, your choice. It shows up when you're alone, when you see others doing what you once dreamed of, or when life presents another opportunity, but you hesitate again, haunted by the one you miss. On the other hand, action, even if it leads to failure, leaves no regret. Because there is a deep pride in knowing that you tried, that you faced discomfort instead of running from it, that you chose courage over convenience. Effort doesn't guarantee success, but it guarantees peace of mind. And that peace is far more valuable than the temporary comfort excuses provide. The irony is that we avoid effort because we want ease, but excuses lead to the opposite of ease. They lead to restlessness. We keep wondering, "Oh, what if?" And that wondering becomes a mental burden. But when we take responsibility, when we act, even if progress is slow, we feel light. We feel aligned. We know we are living with intention, not avoidance. Excuses rob us not just of our goals, but of the person we could have become. They delay our growth, our learning, our development. They pause our progress, but never pause time. And time, once gone, never returns. One excuse today might not seem like much, but make one every day, and you look back 1 year later, standing in the same place, wondering how others moved ahead while you stood still. But here's the beautiful truth. At any moment, we can decide to stop. We can stop seeking comfort in excuses and start seeking meaning in effort. We can begin to choose the short-term pain of discipline over the long-term pain of regret. Because while effort is uncomfortable, it is temporary. You struggle, you adapt, and eventually you succeed. But regret, that can last forever, unless you choose now to break the cycle. So next time you feel the pull of an excuse, pause. Ask yourself, will this bring me peace now or pride later? Choose pride, choose action. Because in the end, it's not the things we tried and failed that hurt us most. It's the things we never tried because we gave into the comfort of excuses.
Powerful decisions often happen quietly. We imagine life changing choices to be loud, dramatic or marked by some grand announcement. We think they come with trumpets and applause, or that everyone around us will see the moment and recognize it as a turning point. But in reality, the most transformative decisions often happen in silence, when no one is watching in thee, and when nothing around us looks any different. It's the decision to get out of bed when your heart feels heavy in the. It's the moment you choose not to respond to insult with insult. It's when you quietly say no more to a habit that has held you back. No one sees those choices. There's no spotlight, no stage, no validation in them. But they are often the real beginnings of something extraordinary. While the world celebrates outcomes, awards, promotions, success stories, very few notice the thousands of silent decisions that led there. The reason these decisions matter so much is because they come from within, in the. They aren't influenced by approval or fear of judgment. They're not about impressing anyone. They're about aligning with who you truly want to become. It's easy to announce a goal, but it takes strength to live it in the quiet moments when no one is keeping score. That's where integrity is built. That's where character is formed. And that's where true progress happens. Not when we talk about changing, but when we act on it, even in the smallest, most unnoticed ways. Some people chase external motivation all their lives. Ours to be in the. They wait for the right quote, the right video, the right words from someone else to stir their soul. But those moments are fleeting. What stays with you are the decisions you make when no one tells you what to do. When you decide, even if no one claps, I will keep going. Even if no one notices, I will still show up. Even if I fall short, I will not quit. Think of someone who seems successful or grounded. Behind that calm confidence is a series of quiet decisions to be patient when it was easier to be angry, to stay disciplined when distractions were loud, to keep believing when doubt whispered louder than hope in the. These people didn't wait for life to shout at them. They listened to the quiet voice within and responded to it consistently. So often we underestimate the power of that voice. But it's in those whispers that our real direction is revealed. And when we listen, when we act, not loudly, but deeply, our life begins to shift. Not suddenly, but surely. Because powerful decisions don't always need noise to be strong. They just need commitment. And that kind of commitment doesn't come from crowds. It comes from within. Fear of failure stops most people before they start. Not because they aren't capable, not because they lack talent or intelligence, but because in their minds, they've already imagined the worst possible outcome. They've created a vivid story of falling short, being judged, feeling embarrassed, and losing everything they've hoped for. And so, they never even try. It's almost as if the fear of failing hurts more than the actual experience of failure. And that fear becomes a prison, silently convincing people to stay where they are in the. Even when where they are makes them miserable. But fear of failure is one of the greatest illusions. It convinces us that trying and not succeeding is worse than staying stuck. It tells us that embarrassment is permanent, that one mistake defines our worth, and that rejection means we're not good enough. But the truth is, failure is not the enemy. It's a teacher, a guide, and often a necessary part of the journey. The problem is, we've been trained to believe that failure is final, when in reality, it's just feedback. So many people stand at the edge of their dreams, looking into the unknown, and instead of stepping forward, they turn around. Not because they didn't want it, but because they let fear speak louder than desire. And that fear disguises itself in logical excuses. It's not the right time. I'm not ready. What if it doesn't work? But all those excuses are just masks for one truth. I'm scared to fail, and if we're not careful, that fear becomes a habit. We start fearing failure in relationships, in creativity, in business, in speaking up, in being vulnerable. Slowly we shrink ourselves, not because we can't grow, but because we don't want to fall. But what if falling isn't failure? What if it's practice? Think of a child learning to walk. They fall over and over. But no one says, maybe walking isn't for you. We encourage them, we cheer for them, and eventually they learn to stand. Why do we stop being that kind to ourselves when we grow up? Every successful person you've ever admired has failed. Not once, not twice, but many times. The difference is they didn't let it stop them. They understood that failure isn't a signal to quit. It's a signal to learn. It's the fire that refines you. It strips away your ego, humbles your assumptions, and pushes you to become better than you were yesterday. So when fear whispers, what if you fail? Ask yourself, what if I don't? What if this risk brings the breakthrough I've been waiting for? What if trying is exactly what I need, even if it doesn't go perfectly? Because even if you stumble, even if it's messy, you're still moving forward. And that movement matters more than perfection. In the end, what we regret the most is not the failures we faced, but the chances we never took. We carry the weight of what could have been far longer than we carry the sting of defeat. So don't let fear paralyze you. Let it push you Let it remind you that you're stepping outside your comfort zone. And that's exactly where growth begins. A growth is not about being fearless. It's about deciding despite the fear. One of the biggest myths about personal development is the idea that we must eliminate fear before we can take action. People believe that confidence must come first, that courage means the absence of doubt. But that's not how real growth works. Growth begins when you feel the fear. Acknowledge the uncertainty and still choose to move forward. It's not the absence of fear that makes someone strong. It's their decision to not be controlled by it. Fear is natural. It's a signal that something matters to us. You only fear losing something you value. You fear speaking up because your voice matters. You fear failing because your dream matters. You fear getting hurt because your heart matters. So fear, in many ways, is proof that you're alive that you care, that you're standing at the edge of something significant. And when you understand this, you stop trying to fight fear, and instead, you learn to walk with it. Too many people wait to feel brave before they begin. But bravery isn't something you wait for. It's something you build through action. The first time you speak, your voice may shake. The first time you lead, you might stumble. The first time you pursue your dream, you'll feel uncertain. That's okay. That's what growth looks like. Messy, unsure, and often filled with moments where you want to turn back. But if you keep going, if you keep choosing in the presence of fear, you grow into the person you once thought you had to become before you started. Think of the people you admire. They didn't begin their journey fearless. They were just as uncertain, just as anxious, just as unsure. But they made a decision. I won't let fear dictate my future. They understood that real transformation happens when you show up, not perfectly, but persistently. Each time you face your fear, even in small ways, you chip away at its power. You expand your capacity. You realize that fear is not a wall, but a doorway. And that doorway leads to new experiences, in the new strengths, and new parts of yourself you've never met before. Because every time you act despite the fear, you rewire your identity. For 3 hours to be you stop seeing yourself as someone who hesitates and start seeing yourself as someone who dares. And the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. Fear might still whisper, but it no longer commands you. You begin to live guided not by what scares you, but by what calls you. This is where real growth happens. Not in waiting to feel safe, but in deciding to move even when you don't. Not in the absence of fear, but in your ability to act anyway. Because when you choose in the presence of fear, you discover a strength that was always inside you, just waiting to be used. Regret is the cost of indecision. It doesn't arrive like fear, loud and immediate. Regret is patient. It waits. It creeps in slowly, often unnoticed at first, and then one day it shows up like a shadow whispering about the chances you didn't take, the words you never said, the path you never walked. Indecision might feel harmless in the moment. It feels safer than risking failure, easier than facing discomfort. But what it silently accumulates is a weight heavier than almost any setback. The weight of what could have been. People often underestimate how much they lose by doing nothing. They imagine that staying still is a neutral act, that it buys them time, that it keeps them from pain. But indecision itself is a decision. It's a choice to stuck, a quiet refusal to move, to evolve, to explore. And the cost of that is not just opportunity, it's time, it's growth. It's the deep inner peace that comes from knowing, at least I tried, every dream you've ever had, every goal, every vision, it waits on the other side of a decision. Yet, so many people freeze at the threshold, not because they're incapable, not because they don't care, but because they're afraid to choose wrong. They tell themselves, good, what if I make the wrong decision? And so, they make none at all. But ironically, not choosing is often the most damaging choice of all. At least when you try and fail, you learn. At least when you act and fall short, you gain clarity. But when you hesitate indefinitely, you gain nothing but the slow erosion of your own belief in yourself. Think of a fork in the road. The one path might be rocky, the other uncertain. You don't know where either one truly leads. But standing still at that crossroad, hoping for a perfect sign, does not stop time. Life keeps moving. The world keeps spinning. And eventually, you look back and realize that the road didn't disappear. You simply never walked it. And that's when regret begins to speak louder than fear ever did. People don't talk enough about the quiet heartbreak of not living up to your own potential, about the dreams you shelved for another time, about the relationships that faded because you never said what needed to be said, about the skills you never developed because you doubted yourself. Indecision robs you not in one big moment, but in tiny, consistent acts of avoidance that go unnoticed until they become your reality. But the worst part is that regret has no rewind button. You can't undo time. You can only live with the echo of your hesitation. And while failure hurts, regret lingers. It stays in your mind, playing out different scenarios. What if I had tried? What if I had spoken up? What if I had chosen myself that day? That's why it's so vital to act. Even if it's a small step, even if you're unsure, because movement creates momentum, and momentum leads to discovery. But hesitation, repeated often enough, becomes a lifestyle. And before you know it, you've lived a cautious life, not a courageous one. Not because you weren't brave but because you waited too long to be. Regret doesn't come from choosing wrong. It comes from never choosing at all. Today holds the power to rewrite your future, not tomorrow, not some distant day when circumstances align perfectly, but this very moment that you are breathing in right now. It's easy to think of the future as something far away, something waiting for us in years to come, but in truth, the future is being built in the decisions you are making today. Every thought, every action, every step you take now is quietly shaping the life you'll step into later. And that means today isn't just another day on the calendar. It's the seed of your destiny. The fascinating thing about life is how one simple choice can redirect everything. You may not realize it at first. You might think it's just a small step. It won't matter. But the greatest transformations are rarely born from dramatic leaps. They begin with one ordinary decision made on an ordinary day. Choosing to start that routine, choosing to let go of a grudge, choosing to apply for that opportunity, choosing to say yes when fear wants you to say no. That one choice can send a ripple effect across months, years, even generations. Think about the small compass in a ship. If it shifts by even 1 degree, the vessel doesn't just move slightly, it eventually ends up in an entirely different place. Perhaps even a whole new continent. Your life is no different. One decision today, however small, can take you somewhere entirely new over time. Yet most people underestimate this power because they expect immediate results. They want instant transformation, instant reward, instant proof that the choice mattered. And when they don't see it right away, they dismiss the decision as pointless. But life doesn't work like that. Growth takes time. Impact takes time. And the seeds you plant today may not bloom tomorrow, but they will bloom one day if you keep watering them. The beauty of today is that it is fresh, untouched, and unspoiled. Yesterday's mistakes do not own it, and tomorrow's uncertainties cannot steal it. Today is yours. It is a blank page that asks you, what story will you write now? If you allow the past to dictate today, you're simply rewriting an old script. But if you choose to act differently, even in a small way, you begin a new chapter. That is the gift of today, the chance to choose again, to redirect, to redefine. And yet many people spend today either chained to yesterday or worrying about tomorrow. They replay regrets or fast forward to fears, forgetting that the only place they can truly act is now. The past is already written, the future is unwritten, but today is the pen in your hand. If you let it pass without choice, without intention, you hand over your story to chance. But if you seize it, even with trembling hands, you reclaim authorship of your life. So often, people underestimate the value of a single day. But history has turned on single days. On the day someone refused to give up, the day someone stood for what was right, the day someone decided to begin again. And the same power lies in your hands. Because no matter how your story has been so far, today can be the day that shifts its direction. Today can be the day you decide that the rest of your life will not be defined by hesitation, fear, or regret, but by courage, resilience, and hope. Today is not just another date. It is possibility disguised as a gift in the and what you choose to do with it can rewrite everything that comes after. The past is a place of reference, not residence. Yet so many of us live as if the past is our permanent address. We replay old mistakes, relive painful memories, rehearse the moments we wish we could change, and we let those echoes of yesterday define who we are today. It's like dragging around a suitcase full of old clothes that don't fit anymore, but we refuse to put them down. Why? Because even though they're heavy, they're familiar. Even though they weigh us down, we've become used to the burden. But the truth is, the past cannot be changed. It cannot be edited or erased. It is done. It's etched into the timeline of your life as a record, not a rule. Just because something happened to you, or you made a certain choice years ago, doesn't mean that your life is stuck in that version of yourself. You've grown since then. You've learned, you've seen more, felt more, understood more. Yet the mind often clings to what was, out of guilt, out of shame, or simply because it's easier to stay in the known pain than step into unknown healing. Your past may explain how you got here, but it doesn't get to decide where you go next. It should be like a signpost, not a cage. Yes, use it to understand your patterns. Use it to draw wisdom. Use it to remind yourself of how far you've come. But don't let it speak louder than the voice inside you that knows you are capable of becoming more than what you've been. Too many people live in a loop, replaying regrets and missed opportunities. They say, if only I had done that differently, or if I should have known better. But that backward focus steals today's potential. It's like trying to drive a car while staring in the rearview mirror. You'll crash into what's ahead because you're too focused on what's behind. There's also the pain of identity. Sometimes the past labels we've been given, failure, disappointment, unworthy, begin to shape our self-image. And without realizing it, we start to live a life limited by an old story, even if that story no longer fits who we are. We imprison ourselves in an outdated narrative, forgetting that stories can be rewritten, that identities can be reborn. The person you were at your lowest moment is not the whole of who you are. That version was one chapter, not the book. Letting go of the past doesn't mean forgetting it. It means forgiving yourself for not knowing better at the time. It means releasing others from the power they held over your pain. It means choosing to stop rehearsing what went wrong and starting to envision what can go right. Some people hold on to the past because they think letting go means denying what happened. But letting go is not denial, it's freedom. It's the powerful, intentional act of saying, yes, this happened, yes, it hurt. But I am no longer going to let it control me. I am more than my scars. I am not defined by my lowest day. When you live in the past, you're trying to build a future with old tools, using outdated blueprints. But when you decide to treat the past as a reference, not a residence, you start designing something new. You carry the lessons, not the weight. You walk with experience, not with chains. And slowly, the path ahead begins to widen, not because the past has changed, but because your relationship with it has. You start moving forward, not as a prisoner of what was, but as the author of what can be. The true turning point in life is internal. We often believe that change begins with something external, a job offer, a new relationship, a breakthrough opportunity, or the perfect environment. And yes, those things can influence our direction, but real, lasting transformation doesn't come from the outside in. It comes from the inside out. It starts when something shifts within you, when your perspective, your mindset, your identity quietly evolve. And that internal shift begins to shape everything else around you. You could give two people the exact same opportunity and only one will grow from it. Why? Because one was ready internally. They made a decision within themselves. I will grow, I will rise. I will not quit. The other might have had the same tools, the same advantages, but without that inner decision, those tools are wasted. That's the power of internal change. It doesn't rely on the perfect conditions. It simply needs your willingness to say, I'm done waiting for something outside me to change before I take responsibility for my own growth. There's a silent power in self-awareness. It's when you finally see your patterns clearly. The way you react to pain, the stories you tell yourself, the limits you believe in, and you decide to shift them. That shift may not look dramatic on the surface. To the world, nothing may seem different. But inside, something profound has begun. Your allegiance to your old story has ended. You've stopped being loyal to the version of yourself that played small, that doubted, that avoided risk, and you've chosen to create something new, quietly, firmly, without needing anyone else to validate it. This is why some of the most important days of your life don't come with applause. There's no crowd, no announcement, no trophy. It might just be you, sitting alone, tired of your excuses, tired of running from your own potential and saying, no more. That moment, that's when everything begins to shift. Because once you decide who you want to become, the world around you begins to reflect that decision. You show up differently. You speak with more conviction. You carry yourself with clarity. And over time, those small internal shifts create visible, undeniable results. People often chase external motivation, waiting for someone to push them, a video to inspire them, a sign to appear. But what they don't realize is that the most reliable form of motivation is internal alignment. When you decide you're worthy of a better life, when you decide you're capable of more, when you decide you're done shrinking, then you don't need motivation. You become your own reason to keep going. Your actions begin to follow your identity. You no longer act like someone hoping to succeed. You act like someone who already belongs there. Everything in life follows that pattern. Your habits, your relationships, your discipline, they all reflect how you see yourself internally. If you see yourself as a victim of your circumstances, you'll keep choosing passivity. If you see yourself as capable, resourceful, and strong, you'll start taking actions that match that identity, even if no one else sees it yet. This is why internal transformation is the root of all external results. Because if your mind doesn't shift, your life won't either. You could change cities, jobs, or relationships. But if you bring the same mindset with you, you'll recreate the same problems. But if you change your mind, if you change your core belief about who you are and what you're here to do, then everything else becomes possible. That turning point, that inner decision, is where freedom begins. Not when you get everything right, but when you choose to change how you think, how you respond, how you show up. And from that place, the journey becomes not just about reaching goals, but about becoming the kind of person who never needed the world's permission to grow in the first place.